All right, everyone, settle in. All right, everyone, settle in. We're diving back into the heavy stuff today. We're picking up The Hymn by Jackson and Howard.
And let me tell you, I am already feeling the weight of this. I was reading some of the prep notes earlier, and the sheer scale of what they're claiming, it's a lot.
It's always a lot with you two. But hey, I'm here for the chaos. I've enough my tea. I'm ready to see which forbidden truth is going to blow my mind today.
If it's another theory about how your breakfast was actually divine intervention, Paco, I'm leaving.
No, Jane, this is much more structural. We're looking at the shadow history of progress. The idea that what we call civilization wasn't just humans stumbling around with sticks, but a deliberate, directed influence from these angel guides.
It's such a provocative way to frame history. Like, instead of progress being a slow climb, it's a series of programmed downloads.
Exactly. And the authors start this section with a beautiful, almost mathematical image. They talk about Malkuth as Kether.
Wait, hold on. That sounds like a total paradox. How can the lowest, most material point be the highest, most divine?
That's the point. They call it a variation of the Hermetic axiom, as above, so below. They're saying Lumiel, who we'll get to, acts like a lightning bolt descending the central pillar of the tree. He brings perfection to those following the path of spiritual alchemy.
So, he's like the cosmic Wi-Fi, bringing the signal from the heavens straight down to the dirt?
In a way, yeah. But then the book shifts focus to Metatron, and this is where it gets messy.
Oh, I love when the authors get messy. Who is Metatron exactly?
He's the one closest to the throne, a messenger, the source of light. But here's the kicker. They claim he's the son of the Shekinah, the feminine presence of the Creator.
And they link the Shekinah to Lilith and Anat. Great, so we're back to the dark archetypes being part of the divine family tree.
Exactly, it's all interconnected. But then, the authors throw a wrench in the gears. They say the similarities between Metatron and Lumiel are too strong to be purely accidental.
Here we go. The big reveal.
But then they drop this. Metatron was once a human, specifically the prophet Enoch.
Wait, Enoch? The guy who walked with God and just vanished?
That's the claim. He didn't just die, he was transformed. And the book suggests this is the key to understanding the whole Watcher narrative. Enoch was the scribe who recorded the fall.
It's a lot of heavy lifting for one paragraph. But then they bring in the politics of it all. They start talking about Lumiel as a planetary ruler.
And this is where the shadow history really shows its teeth. They claim Lumiel is the true ruler of the Earth, the Demiurge, and they link him directly to Baphomet.
Okay, that is a spicy connection. You're telling me the goat of Mendes is actually a misunderstood solar archangel?
That is the core argument. They say the roles were swapped. Originally, Lumiel was the solar logos, the sun itself. But after the war in heaven, he swapped places with Michael. Michael became the angel of Earth, and Lumiel became, well, the ruler of the material, darker realm.
So the bad guy in the Christian narrative is actually a fallen lightbringer trying to manage the physical plane?
Precisely. It reframes the entire concept of evil as a mutter on standing of cosmic duty.
Wait, so you're saying the entire history of the Church of the Crusades, the branding of heretics, was essentially a massive propaganda campaign to hide the fact that the Prince of Darkness was actually just a displaced sun god?
That's exactly the implication. They even point to statues of Saint Michael in old churches, where sometimes, if you look closely, he's depicted with the morning star shining right in his forehead.
That is wild, like a cosmic identity theft.
It gets even more visual. The authors describe an illustration of Lumiel. He's surrounded by a star arch, signifying he was the first light. His wings are a very sign of his power, but also a warning. If an angel loses their wings, they become mortal.
Which brings us back to the human element, the roseblood lineage.
Right. The book moves into this beautiful, somewhat haunting imagery of the five-petaled rose. It's a symbol of a sacred lineage, the roseblood created by the union of the Watchers and humanity.
And the feminine side of that, Sophia, the Lady of the Rose.
Exactly. They link her to the legend of Tannhauser, the knight who fell in love with a goddess in a cave. It's all about these hidden subterranean encounters with the divine.
Man, I feel like I need to go sit in a dark room and contemplate my own celestial DNA after that.
Or maybe just find a rose and wonder who's watching from the shadows.
We'll leave it there for now. Next time, we look at the actual symbols of the Tau Cross and what they say about the Redeemer of the Dark Angel. Okay, we're picking up right where the visual symbolism gets intense. We left off on the idea of identity theft, the idea that Lumiel's true nature was scrubbed from the records.
And honestly, the authors start this next part by giving us a visual key. They talk about the Lady of the Rose, or Venus, appearing in alchemist visions wearing this crimson mantle stitched with green threads.
Crimson and green. Very dramatic. But they point out that those are the same colors associated with Mary Magdalene.
So the forbidden history is basically hiding in plain sight, wearing a fancy cloak.
Exactly. And they use this to bridge into the alchemy of the mystic rose. Look at how they describe the two sides of this. The Rosa Alba, the white rose, which is Lilith, this lunar, mercurial force that turns metals into silver.
And then there's the Rosa Rubi, the red rose. That's Lucifer.
Right. The authors call it the solar sulfur nature. It's the philosopher's stone itself, the thing that turns lead into gold. And they quote Basil Valentine, saying the alchemist has to perform a chemical marriage between the White Queen and the Red King to actually manifest this stone.
S.A. Chang. S.A.Chi.
Wait, hold on. This sounds less like chemistry and more like, well, a very intense date night.
It's a metaphor, Paco, but it's a structural one. They mention Nicholas Flamel describing the stone as being hidden in a garden under a magical oak. It's all about finding his hidden center.
And then they bring in the Ankh, and love this part. They say the Ankh on the illustration isn't just a pretty Egyptian symbol, it's the sacred marriage of opposites.
They describe it as the Tau cross the masculine, phallic symbol joined with the oval, the yoni. It's the union of the red and white rose. Lucifer Apollo meeting Lilith Diana.
So the Great Rite is essentially a cosmic version of what Emily was talking about with her tantric practice?
Hey, don't bring my yoga into your theological debates, Jane. But yeah, actually, they describe it as a literal union of essences. The oil of Lilith and the blood of the red lion mixing to create the rosy dew.
Rosy dew. That sounds like something you'd find in a very expensive, very strange perfume shop.
But look at where it leads. This rosy dew, the aqua vitae, the water of life, it flows into the Grail. The cup of light.
And they define the Grail here not as some shiny cup in a movie, but as the yoni of the star goddess, the womb of outer space.
Which, if you follow the author's logic, is the center of the labyrinth. The goal of the entire spiritual ascent.
Okay, but then they hit us with the seal of the Order of Melchizedek. They say this symbol, the cross with the serpent, is the mark of the priest kings.
And this is the heavy part. They explicitly claim that the figure of Lumiel has been distorted and mutilated by the church. They say the enemies of truth took this Lord of the First Light and rebranded him as Satan, a demonic monster used to scare the flock into submission.
So, the entire concept of hell is just a psychological cage built by the priesthood to keep people from realizing they're actually descendants of this Lightbringer?
That is precisely the claim. They say the path doesn't lead to hell, but to self-realization, to moving away from crude materialism.
Man, that is a massive indictment. It's like saying the entire security system of the world was designed to keep us from finding the exit.
And then the book pivots. It moves from the symbolic to the historical. Chapter 15, The Priest King.
And they go straight to Melchizedek, the man who appears for only 8 lines in Genesis, but apparently is the most dangerous man in the Bible.
Because, as they say, if his true identity were known, his name would be immediately censored.
Of course it would. Because he's the guy who brings bread and wine to Abraham, a civilized alternative to the bloody animal sacrifices that the God of the Old Testament seems to demand.
Wait, so the authors are saying the true religion was much more peaceful bread and wine, and the official religion was just a way to keep the blood sacrifices and the power structures going?
That's the shadow history right there. They argue that Melchizedek represents a tradition of priest kings that the early church tried to erase because it was too close to the heretical truth.
And they even link him to the Titans and the Kabiri, these ancient primordial gods.
It's all very conspiracy theory, isn't it? But I have to admit, the way they connect the bread and wine to a rejection of the bloodiness of Yahweh, it makes the political motive for the church's censorship actually make sense.
It's a lot to digest. We're looking at a world where every symbol is a coded message, and every demon is just a misunderstood god. Next time, we're going to look at what happens when these caste kings actually meet the human lineage. Alright, we're back. And I have to say, after our last session, I've been looking at everything a little differently. Even the way I approach my research, it's feeling less like data analysis and more like, well, tracing a lineage.
I know that feeling. It's like the patterns are starting to emerge from the noise.
Speaking of patterns, I saw a bee outside my very window today, and I almost tried to negotiate a trade agreement with it.
Maybe you were just looking for more cosmic Wi-Fi signals, Paco. But seriously, we're picking up with the heavyweights now. The authors move from the politics of Melchizedek to his actual origins, and it's even more wild than we thought. They link him to the sons of Zadok, the ancient Jewish priesthood, but then they pull in Blavatsky,
Oh great, Blavatsky. The patron saint of everything is a secret code.
But listen to the connection she makes. She compares Melchizedek to the Roman god Mars. She sees him as a lord of death who also manages agriculture and architecture.
Wait, Mars? The god of war? How does a war god end up managing architecture and farming?
That's the shadow history again, Emily. It's the idea that these figures represent fundamental structural forces. And it gets even stranger. She links him to Vulcan and even Cain.
Of course, because why stop at a priest king when you can bring in the first murderer? It's all one big, messy family tree.
But look at what they say about his gift. This is the part that actually made me stop scrolling. They claim Melchizedek brought 3 specific gifts to early humanity, all from the planet Venus.
From Venus? Like an actual interplanetary delivery service?
They frame it as symbolic, but the specificity is what's haunting. The first gift was wheat, the symbol of fertility and the sacrifice of the divine king. The second was the bee.
The bee? I was just talking to a bee.
Exactly, and they tie the bee to the Great Mother cult. They even mention how the fleur-de-lis, the symbol of French royalty, comes from a stylized bee. They even say ancient kings used honey to embalm themselves.
Okay, fine. The bee is a classic archetype. But what's the third gift? Please don't tell me it's something ridiculous like the concept of Tuesdays.
It's asbestos.
I'm sorry, what?
Asbestos. They describe it as a material with a magical ability to resist fire and absorb heat. And the authors point out that if you consider that 1 million years ago, Venus was a hot desert planet, then the idea of these gifts arriving from a sister planet actually holds a symbolic structural weight.
That is unsettling. It turns ancient myth into a kind of cosmic survival manual, like, here is the stuff you need to survive the heat.
It's like a planetary care package.
And it's more than about survival. The book moves into the Grail. And here's that connection we were talking about earlier, the one that makes the church look like a cover-up. They say the Grail was carved from the emerald crown of Lucifer.
There it is, the big, juicy, heretical claim.
But they don't just throw it out there. They trace it through a German troubadour, Wolfram von Escultbach, in 1205. They suggest his fairy tale was actually a coded magical text designed to bridge Middle Eastern mysticism with the West.
So the romance of the Grail Knights was actually a way to smuggle forbidden knowledge past the censors?
That's the thesis. They even link the Grail to the Black Stone of Mecca. They say it was originally a white stone given to Abraham by the angel Gabriel, but over centuries it absorbed the sins of humanity and turned black.
That is a heavy way to describe a piece of stone. It's like a cosmic sponge for bad vibe.
And it connects to the Stone of Destiny in Ireland too, a lineage of sacral stones that all seem to be part of the same planetary nervous system.
Precisely. And it all culminates in the figure of the hero Parsifal, the holy fool.
I love the idea of the fool being the only one who can see the truth. It's so much like the tarot.
Exactly. They explicitly link the tarot fool to Parsifal, the mask of the clown hiding the face of the enlightened magus who has crossed the abyss.
So if I trip over a rug during my next set, I'm not clumsy. I'm just performing a ritual of spiritual transcendence.
If you play it right, Paco, maybe. But look at the imagery of the Grail quest itself. Parsifal sees a page carrying a bleeding spear, the Spear of Destiny, and a queen carrying a green stone on a green silk pillow.
And the spear? It's more than a weapon. They say it pierced the hip of the Fisher King, rendering him spiritually and sexually impotent.
So the wounding of the king is the wounding of the earth itself? The land becomes a wasteland because the king can no longer fulfill his role?
That is the core of the myth. The wounded king, or the crooked god, the physical and spiritual fertility of the world is tied to this one central broken figure.
Man. Everything is breaking. The king is wounded, the bees are dying, the stones are turning black. It's a lot of heavy energy for one afternoon.
It is, but it's also about the potential for repair. The search for the Grail is the search for the way to heal that wound. We'll pick up next time when we look at the spear, the cauldron, and the stone and how they all come back to the center. Let's take a breath before the weight of the Grail gets too heavy to carry.
Yeah, I need to go check if I've accidentally wounded any kings in the kitchen.